咁多位委員，就我咧就收到
I have received a motion moved by Dr. Fernando Cheung. Now the question is, should we deal with the motion first? Or should we listen to the deputations and individuals first? Now, there are different views on that. So I would like to get your views on this, members. Now, let's deal with it in a simpler way. If you support dealing with Dr. Cheung's motion first, please raise your hands. Now this is all open. Perhaps now, since we all agree, we deal with Dr. Fernando Cheung's motion first. Dr. Cheung, do you have anything to say? I will merely read my motion. Thank you, Chairman. Now, given that the NENT development plan is unfair and partial to the conglomerates and doesn't respect local residents and farmers, this panel asks the government to immediately withdraw the plan and stop all misleading promotions and should perpetuate an agricultural policy to develop local agriculture. Thank you. Members, are there other members who wish to speak? Ms. Sit Ho? This is merely for correction. It's the character should be Chi Siu instead of Sa Siu. Will the Secretariat please make the correction for us? Any other members wish to speak? If not, we put this motion to a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against, please raise your hands. None against. So that's the majority. The motion is passed. Dr. Cheung's motion is passed. This is passed without objection. Now we come back to the agenda. First, we welcome the deputations and individuals. I will invite you to speak in turn. Those taking part will be given 3 minutes each. To facilitate the meeting, the timing device is arranged by the Secretariat. I'd like to remind deputations and individuals present, your written submissions and verbal submissions will not enjoy the exemptions and protections under Chapter 382 Legislative Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Mr. Lau Kem Wai, I'm a villager of Youdam Mei. I am against the so-called development of NENT. I have suffered what the residents of NENT suffered. I've grown up at Youdam Mei village. My father built a house in Youdam Mei in the 1950s, in the 1952. In August this year, suddenly my house was demolished, so I reported it to the police. The police arrested the two persons. Later I learned why my house was demolished. It concerns certain real estate development at Ngau Tham Mei. Later the police said to me, now the two arrested persons were caught red-handed, but the police said that you cannot prosecute them on a criminal basis. It can be only civil action. Now, I think I am suffering what the other residents of NENT are suffering. They demolish our house, and yet we can only take civil action. Many NENT residents tell me that they don't know about the development. The same as for Ngau Tham Mei village. Now, the village representative, the village chief, they do not let us know the whole picture. Now, we may be left with no water, etc., and they haven't told us. The village representative doesn't heed our concern. The express rail link doesn't listen at all. I thank Mr. Lew Kwok Hong for speaking out for Ngau Tham Mei residents. This Deputy Secretary, Mr. Chen, who is not bearing the responsibility. Can you tell me whether you would convey our views to Mr. Paul Chen? Will you tell him personally? Mr. Lau, please continue. I have finished. Now, it's been said earlier, Mr. Chen, the Deputy Secretary, already said that he would convey the deputation's views. Next, Ms. Li Lin Chan. I am also against the NENT development. Now, the people's livelihood and their living environment are affected. And at our Ngau Tham Mei village, things happened. Now, since 1982, I have been raising kamlay fish at Ngau Tham Mei. All along, the well water and the natural environment haven't changed, or hadn't changed, until Ngau Tham Mei works started at Ngau Tham Mei village. At the first phase of the works, we found that the deep water wells at our fish farm showed a subsidence of the water level at the pump, and only half of the water is coming out, so our fish farm was unable to operate normally. We are facing the fate of closing down. Now, I complained during the year to Express Rail Link. They sent somebody to look at our fish farm on several occasions, and they know that the water level has subsided at our deep water well, and yet the ERL has not given us a plain answer on how to improve the water supply or the environment, to normalize it. They just say that we should get some company to carry out some kind of certification on how the works have affected us. They are merely pushing the buck from one to another. We first contacted Mr. Lee Wing Hao, and now it's different every time we contact them. So what are we to do? I'd like to ask the Deputy Secretary to tell us how you can help us resolve all these problems. Chairman. Next, Mr. Lau Xiu Chung. I'm a villager of Ngautam Mei. Now, right now, the houses at our village have been impacted by the underground blasting by express rail link. The walls are cracking, the metal gates cannot be opened or closed properly, and we have been very troubled. We talked to the workmen at the work sites on how the problems can be alleviated, and yet they don't talk to us. The water level has dropped at our wells. I raise fish. And also depend on the wells for drinking water. So how can we live on? Now, we are not against the express rail link or its works, but we don't want our village to be affected. We are law-abiding residents, but your works have affected the villagers. Now, sometimes I listen to news reports, and you say that the government will offer assistance to those affected by the ERL, but we haven't seen the government actually help us resolve the problems. So we have come to resent the government. We come all the way to LegCo to ask the LegCo members to help us resolve these problems of noise and reduction in water supply. I am Mrs. Fan. I am a resident of Ngautam Mei. I am against the development of northeastern new territories. I have suffered a great deal. The express rail link works involve boring a hole right underneath my house. My well runs out of water. The pipes are damaged. No water for watering the plants. The pumpkin and the fruit have all died. I have nothing to eat. Are you asking me to collect CSSA? I grow flowers for a living. My house is also cracking. It's a crisis for me. I don't know what to do. I asked the express rail link. The express rail link didn't bother to heed me. I asked members to help me, because you are more educated than I am. I am at a loss on what to do. I have nothing to say except that I oppose the works at Ngautam Mei. The boring of holes under my house. I am also against the NTNE development. I have nothing else to say. Bravo. Next, Mr. Lo San Cheung. Members, I have lived at Ngau Tham Mei. I am against the development of NENT. Since 2011, the express rail link works have been going on at Ngau Tham Mei village. The entire village is running out of water. The walls are cracking. The walls are slanting now. The farmers have no water for their vegetables or their fish ponds. The fish have all died. I hope members can help Ngau Tham Mei villagers and take up the matter with the ERL. I have finished what I have to say. Next, Madam Tang Siu Kwan. Good afternoon, members. I'm villager of Ngau Tham Mei village. I'm very much against the development of NENT. You can look at my situation. Right now at my home, with the development of ERL, at my home at Ngau Tham Mei village, holes are being bored underground. Such works affected our well. Our walls are cracking. The wells are running out of water, and there are oil stains, and the water has turned yellow. You can look at this bottle of water here. There's no water for the trees and flowers, and the 2 stone columns have been displaced. I'm very scared because a lot of people go in and out. I'm afraid that when the doors are slammed by the children, the 2 columns might collapse and people may die. The ERL wouldn't do anything. The displacement has become more serious. The ERL merely sends somebody over to have a look. They say that they will fix it for us, but nothing has come out of that. I'm afraid that the columns might collapse because I'm afraid that the elderly people might be hurt. I kept saying to the ERL, if people are hurt, I will not bear any responsibility. It's caused by the ERL. When you came, our wells and walls are affected. Until then, nothing was the matter. Now they say they will make the repairs, but they don't come. It's now near the New Year. At New Year, people come and visit us, and if they are hurt at Chinese New Year, you know, people will be very unhappy. We are against the ERL underground boring at Ngau Tham Mei village, and I'm also against the development of NENT. Next, Mr. Fong Si Keung. Good afternoon, Chairman, members. I am against the development of NENT. I was born in Ngau Tham Mei. My family all along kept fish for a living. In 1987, the government built the circulatory road. The land was resumed. Unfair compensation was given to us. We had to move, and later I found my current premises where I kept raised the Kamlay fish. I invested a lot. I did a lot of construction. At first we used river water. We raised a high-grade Japanese variety, and 2007 I dug 2 scientific wells, high-tech wells, over 70 meters deep, and middle of this year I found that the river water and well water has decreased, and I learned that the ERL is doing work downstream.
I complain told my complaint to the railway company. If your works are carrying on at a lower stream, of course the water level will drop. But the railway company originally said that it had not affected the water source, and then they said it was 80 meters. Subsequently, they said 30 meters. I have another fish farm. I think they also use artisan well. I asked him whether or not he had the same difficulty, and he said yes. So we engaged a surveyor to carry out an assessment. That was 2 months ago. We've approached the railway company, but so far there's no response. We asked the rail company according to what criteria would they publish the reports, because nobody could anticipate the loss of the underground water. We all know that it will simply flow towards the lower stream. The works is only 1/3 completed. Now, if the XRL subway passes through underneath the Ngautamei village, how much will be the impact? I don't want. Where I was born in the Ngautamei village, I've been, keeping fish there, but I was forced to give up my business once by the government. I don't want that to happen again. We want to make a living relying on our own efforts. I hope the government can really, address the issue or the difficulties faced by the fish farmers in Ngautamei. I'm also against the development of NENT. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chen Wai Ming from the Martin Bob Village Concern Group. Thank you. I am against the development of NENT because this proposal actually destroys the homes of the villagers. It destroys our farmland. I operate an orchard in Martin Bog, and I've been persecuted by the landlords, and I don't have the money to take them to court, whereas they have so much resources. They have all to say. We've worked hard for decades. I have 5 in my family. We live inside the orchard. If you evict me, then the 5 of us wouldn't have any place to stay. The government always said that it's people focused, always saying that it cares about public livelihood. All these are empty talks. Right now, the town planning board, within a matter of only a few months, have come to my orchard, putting up at least 4 notices asking me to leave. They didn't even look at me, and they claim that they're being people focused. So the 5 of us in my family are under a lot of pressure. My farm has close to 20,000 square feet of land. The officials at the town planning board simply gave away the land to the developer instead of allowing me to plant fruit trees there. So you people simply don't work according to the rules. You always talk about protecting the environment and ensure that the air quality is good. Without agriculture, how can you protect the environment? If there's no agriculture, no farming, there is no environmental protection. If there's no clean air, without flowers and plants, how can you have fresh air? So I'm in my twilight years, but all the officials in the government is causing me all these troubles. In my farm, remember, I have close to 20,000 square feet of land, but the town board simply gave away the land to the developer, so that you can invite, you can start tendering out the site. Next, we have Ms. Ho Kit Wong from the Ninglam Universities Union. during the Street Consultation Forum organized by C.Y. Leung, I attended those forums even though it was exam time, because I think the situation in Hong Kong is now very ridiculous. 2 days ago, Leung Chun-ying said that the NENT development project was planned to develop a new town, but actually the Lin Tin has been incorporated in the 12 5-year plan, and a joint, custom platform will build there, and it will also in future link up with the high-speed highway. So Lin Tong will cause a hole to be opened up in the NT, and also the rich people can speculate property in the area. And this is actually total disregard of the livelihood of the grassroots people. The government is lying. Why is it that for this new town development plan you're going to build highways and build custom border control points there? Why is it the villages are being evicted forcibly and they didn't know what's happening until the land is being resumed? Even though you've conducted consultation, you received more than 6,000 submissions which objected to your plan. Where have those objections gone? What have you done? I've been to the NENT several times. The people live, are able to survive by farming, and the vegetables are sold directly to the people and don't have to go through the middleman of Ling Reed. But the government is now evicting the people who've lived there for a long time and stifling the development of agriculture. The government is now adopting this top-down approach, and using this, is causing our whole society to become more and more monotonous. Furthermore, the NT development, only 20% of the land will be used for public housing. The developer is now resuming land and evicting all the people living there and use the land to build luxury apartments. Even though I work for my whole life, I'm not able to buy these luxury apartments. The government tells us, for whom are these luxury apartments built? Last week, the Chinese University Student Union leader asked C.Y. Leung, what exactly is the wrong with this, the anti-development plan. He said that the students still young, they don't know about the housing problem. I think the problem is that there's no consultation. The government is forcibly evicting the residents there. The government is killing agriculture in Hong Kong. It's not a question of whether we can buy property, but rather under a capitalist system, everything is done for the sake of selfish interests. I'm here today. I'm elected an external president of the student union. I've received more than 1,000 votes. The government cannot make the same claim. You're just, a special privileged class. I received more votes when I campaigned for my student union post than C.Y. Leung. So I think we should all take to the streets, and fight to the last minute. Mr. Lam Siu Kit from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. I fully agree with the representative from Lingnan University. Again, the number of votes we obtained when campaigning for the student union leadership far exceeded those of C.Y. Leung. So I think the development plan for NENT, we have to find out the reason for the development. I think we remember that before C.Y. Leung became the CE, he said that this is a place where millionaires can enter the area without the requirement for a visa. And recently, when there's a lot of public complaint, he changed his tune and said this is going to be a new development area for Hong Kong. But how can the government persuade us that this new development plan, which can change overnight, can you convince us that this is not just a pretext, but in reality is simply a political mission to integrate Shenzhen with Hong Kong? The government said that the development is in order to provide sufficient land to resolve a housing problem. So the low-density development will be built near the border area. How much can it help resolve a housing problem? Low-density development means it's going to be expensive, and ordinary people who can't even afford ordinary housing, how can they be able to afford to buy low-density development residential units at the border area? They are not going to be built for the average citizens, but rather they look more like villas for the rich and also properties for people to speculate on. how would one be foolish enough to spend a lot of money and cost you double the amount of transportation costs to live there unless you don't have to work? To resolve the housing problem, why do you go to such a remote area to build a new town? Why the government has more than 4,000 hectares of vacant land? Why can't the government use those vacant government land or convert vacant industrial sites to build public housing? The government has not even tried. Why do you have to evict more than 10,000 residents in NENT and then pay a huge amount of money to the indigenous villagers so that developers can resume their land? Has there been any transfer of interest? Do they have any special interest? Finally, this development plan is unjust. We see that the so-called consultation has been going on for a few years. It was only in a couple of months when the non-indigenous villagers in NTNEs heard about this proposal. And through different channels, they have expressed the view that they don't want to be affected by this development plan because if the plan goes ahead, agriculture, they cannot continue with the farming there. Has the government heard the views of the people of Hong Kong? The people of Hong Kong wants this proposal to be scrapped. Next, Ms. Tong Chung Yan. I've heard many of the Yaotai Mei villages, so I'd like to ask the honourable members, how many of you, when will you stop this sort of development proposal? The government suggests that they will develop a site in order to provide public housing for us. This is a lie. There's plenty of other land that could be used to build many housing units. Furthermore, the NTNT development, 80% of the land will be used to build luxury apartments. Is it because you want to make a profit that you're going to build public housing and HOS flats? Many villagers living there will be evicted. It's not a matter of money. It's not how much you're going to compensate these people. You're changing their lifestyle. They have farmland where they can live on. So how can they continue to make a living if they were evicted? Since we're young, we've been taught that development is good in order that we enhance value and make a profit. And that's why many people say that we don't need the farmland, we use it to build property to speculate instead. But all this is, at the expense of the ordinary people. All these proposals only help to safeguard the interests of the rich and powerful. The government's tactic is very problematic. Everything is top-down. At the beginning, there was no consultation. Many of the villagers didn't know what is happening. You've collected so much views, but I don't see you've changed your position a bit. In the Allied Zoning Plan, we can see that your attitude is such that you think that you are not only managing the place, you are actually in control. You don't realize how important the area is for these people. You continue to use money to put pressure on the people so the government can resume the land. That is violence on the part of the government, and it's also, so I'm therefore against this sort of model of development, and therefore we must take to the street on January the 1st. Next, Ms. Lam Kam Kwai. I represent the Shengshan Wat village. Before the Port of Hong Kong was formed, our ancestors already lived in the village. We have more than 200 houses. Most of our villagers didn't live in the village. They work overseas. But I note that in future it is proposed that the government has this concept of special industry to be developed there. Although we don't know what special industries are, but I think employment is very important. Because in 2030, will they still be using cell phones that we use now? The cars that we drive in 2020, will they be the same as the ones that we're driving now? I don't think so. I'm worried in the village that we see that in the vicinity of my village, please stop shouting. I think we need to respect each deputation's right to speak. It's now Mr. Lam's turn. Mr. Chen, I think you have to respect our rules. If it is your time to turn to speak, nobody interrupted you. I hope you will not interrupt, other people's, because everyone is entitled to 3 minutes. I think if it goes on like this, I think our proceedings will be disrupted. Mr. Leung, it's not your turn to speak now. Mr. Lam, please continue. According to the plan, our village will be surrounded by residential land. So this may result in bad planning. So that our village and other residential units, you'll find that the environment will deteriorate. We hope that the government can plan the land in our village properly so that it can be used to build private residential estates. Fix the model for those residential estates, so that we can plan properly the residential development there. We can also have underground vehicular access so that we can have more space on the ground level, and that we can build pavements and cycling tracks. To the east of the Shengshan Kaiwat village is a valley. We think the valley could be planned into a site where we can build village houses. We believe that the new development area can certainly give a new opportunity for Pingche Takuling, and also a new residential development can be built there, so that there will be homes for people and employment opportunities as well. The gentleman in the public gallery, I have to warn you, if you continue to behave in this manner, I'll have to ask you to leave. Next.
Mr. Jiang Gajun in the 4th row. Please hold on. Okay, you can use up your time. Thank you. I think we can come to a consensus, and I hope that there is room for expression of views from both sides, both pro and against the plan. Mr. Jiang, in the last session we heard deputations talking about planting orchids and vegetables. Hong Kong is an economic city, and it's only good that we have people who are also interested in farming. Well, they are not landlords. They take out a lease and do some planting and farming there, and the administration is not going to help them. So are we going to sacrifice everything else other than the financial sector?
according to the CE, there will be a lot of public rental housing estates to be built in Northeast NT, and it's said that if we don't do this 10, 20 years down the road, young people will have no flats to buy when they want to get married. And if he also asked whether if we do not go to Northeast NT, where else can we go? Well, my response is that why don't you move your government to the Northeast NT? And if you do this, many other organizations, well, will be doing the same and move with you. You are not going to do this, and I know why. It's in a remote area. It's not convenient. And when people move there to live, they cannot move out again. It will be another Tin Shui Wai, another Tung Chung, a miserable community. So you are saying that people cannot afford to buy a flat that would have to be housed in a remote area. Although you say there will be an industrial area, but I don't think not all people can find jobs there. So what if they have to go out to find jobs? Well, even if with a railway, you have to spend 45 minutes for the trip, for traveling. It's 1.5 hours a day. And transport is expensive. Look at the current fare levels. It's more than $30 for round trip, and you are not going to get a high pay. And so how many people would be willing to pay that kind of fare to go out to work? And also, it's not that we don't have land in Hong Kong. Well, it's not true. It's just that the land has been earmarked for luxury apartments. Look at the vacant land in Kai Tak. And the luxury apartments there cost you more than $10,000 per square foot. So we have used so much land for luxury apartments. And now, on top of MTR stations, we have luxury apartments. PRH can only be found in remote areas. The administration has accused us of exaggerations and misapplying principles. And you are saying that this is not going to be a back garden for mainlanders. How can we trust you? You have been lying so often. Well, the deputations have all spoken for 3 minutes. It's now question time for members. I would suggest that we stick to the 3-minute time limit. I have seen 3 members who would like to speak. Ms. Wai-chuen, Ms. Kenneth Chan, Mr. Leung Kok Hong, Fernando Cheung, Ms. Emily Lau, Dr. Kwok Ka-ki. So Ms. Kwok Ka-ki, you first. Thank you. Well, I attended the complete hearing both last week and this week. So I've heard 200 deputations and individuals. So I would like to thank them all. They have come all the long way to let us know their views. So I have a question for the Bureau. In the 2 hearings, last week's and this week's, we have heard that from many residents that you are going to affect their original way of life through this development plan. So when you decided to have this plan, did you take into account the impact on their lifestyle, their way of living? Although you are going to help them find other land to do farming. Actually, last week I raised the same question. I would like to know more about the government's policy on agricultural development. And when we embark on new development area projects, are we going to marginalize sectors with local characteristics. So can we be told again what's the government's policy on agricultural development? And we don't want to see a repeat of Zhongchong or Tinshui-Wai, and that is you use sort of a mode to plan new towns, and they all look the same. For the new development areas, according to our current estimation, we are going to affect 22 hectares of farmland, which is being cultivated. In the planning for the NDAs, we are going to build an ecological park of 37 hectares in Long Valley, and there will be 2 sites to the north and south of the park. Altogether 45 hectares will be earmarked for the agriculture, and there's another site in North Fanning. Deputy Secretary, last week Mr. Thomas Chow told us the same thing, but the question remains unanswered, and that is the government's agricultural development policy. It's not really about where the sites are or where the land is for the affected farmers. We hope we'll be able to help them together with the AFCD in identifying suitable farmland so that they can resume farming. This is under the Farming Revival, the program of the AFCD. Mr. Kenneth Chan. So Mr. Paul Chan has returned to Hong Kong. From what I've heard, he has returned from Shanghai at about 1 p.m. So if he's sincere, he could have come. So what's happening to him? This morning we are told that he went to Shanghai for a business trip, but now he has returned. And the reporter asked him whether he went there to explain the issues about UBWs, and he said no. So we have to reprimand this irresponsible secretary. So many deputations have come. Well, the MTR is carrying out a project. They have a digging machine, which is going to affect you so seriously. The earth and water is lost due to the project. And the biggest shareholder of MTRCL is the SAR government. So can we be given an answer how or when the issues can be addressed? Is there going to be a negotiation, and when would that take place? Can we have some input from the Bureau? Deputy Secretary, I'm sorry, Dr. Chan, we have heard the questions, but I'm sorry that I'm here to discuss issues about Northeast NT. Colleagues and I have no information here on the express rail link, so we will relay the members' views to our colleagues. Perhaps the officials here can prepare a paper next time for the Development Bureau. We have heard the views, and if you can, please try to address those views, and better still, if you can, please go to have a site visit. Mr. Chan, you are JP, right? You have just been appointed as a JP. A JP is supposedly there to uphold justice. You graduated from the CUHK in 1991, so you are an educated man. You know, those who got enrolled after you want to uphold justice. I know where Mr. Paul Chan has gone. He's gone to the visit or inspect his subdivided flats, or he's drinking at the jockey club, but he won't drive this time. So Mr. Paul Chan is not here. and you ask Mr. Thomas Chan to come as well. That explains everything. All of the questions that we ask, well, can be responded to in a definitive way by Mr. Paul Chan. Even by sophistry, he can do that. So what does he think this consultation is about? In the largest big show of his, fighting almost broke out. And he was criticized. When officials won't come to argue, it means that the dice is cast. I would like to state this now. He is to be held responsible for this. The conflict is going to be serious. I want to put this down for the record. There will be conflicts. Because you are arrogant today, there will be conflicts. I severely criticize Mr. Paul Chan. He's not qualified to be a secretary. We asked him to admit wrongdoing. He wouldn't. We asked him to come to have a serious and formal discussion. We won't talk about his drinking problem, and still he refused. He can ignore the problem with攸潭美, but Professor Anthony Cheung cannot. So the government as a whole must deal with those issues. If this is the way you deal with these people here, how can we expect you to deal with residents of Northeast NT fairly? 20% of land to be used for PLH, 80% for private residential development. We have been asking you a long time, and you are not able to provide an answer. Don't you agree that this is there's a lack of balance, 20% to 80%? How can you say that this is to solve the shortage, the problem of shortage of PLH? So you are an educated person. Won't you say the ratio of 20 to 80 is a lopsided ratio? You study physics. Don't you agree that this is out of balance? He can answer this question. It's a matter of whether he want to answer it. Can I give an answer? Chairman, with regard to housing and the ratio in the public consultation of first stage of public consultation, we talk about 43% being the PLH units in terms of the number of units. I'm talking about land. And also in the public engagement phase 3, there are suggestions that in the NDAs we can increase the density and earmark more land for PLH and HOS projects. We are actively looking into the suggestion. Initial study indicates that for the Northeast NT NDAs, there's room to increase the number of units of PLH so that they account for more than half. And we can also get more land in the Northeast NT to build HOS blocks. Dr. Kwok Ka-kay, first of all, I'd like to thank the deputations, especially those coming from攸潭美. Well, I have visited the village. The villagers are having a hard time. Therefore, they want to come here to tell them what they think, to tell the administration what they think. If the development plan goes ahead, there will be more people coming here because they will be more severely affected compared with攸潭美. There's a lack of accountability. Mr. Thomas Chan, I don't blame you. Well, he's just here to be the target of criticism. Mr. C.Y. Leung and Mr. Paul Chan should be here to face criticism. It was the idea of the one country, two systems center. They wanted to construct a new town for wealthy mainlanders. Well, this is a bad government. They can't even be responsible to these people. They won't even listen to these people. And now it's near the end. When can you go to the affected villages? When will Mr. Wai-chuen be doing this? Do you know? Deputy Secretary, we have heard the views expressed today. We would seriously consider these views in conjunction with those received in the third stage of public engagement. And we'll continue to talk to the stakeholders if necessary. You are not answering my question. I asked you, when are you going to meet those villagers? Can you give them the time of doing this? Otherwise, you are just pushing them to the brink of things, and there will be tens of thousands of people more for the January 1st protest. We have heard them. We'll consider the views. But this is a rotten administration. We are begging you on behalf of the villagers. We are begging you so that you will listen to them. Well, it's a big project costing $40 billion. The money is not for them, but for the indigenous villagers and property developer. And then when the development projects are completed, there will be another sum of tens of billions of dollars to share among those people. And properties will be sold to mainlanders. Please don't do this. Otherwise, you're driving tens of thousands of more people to the street. Even if Mr. Wai-chuen is not willing to do this, you, Mr. Thomas Chan, you should do this. You should go and see them. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Chairman, I'm not going to make it difficult for Mr. Chan. Our position has been stated clearly. Members here have expressed their position very clearly. We want the administration to withdraw this plan for Northeast NT. Mr. Chan is a graduate of physics, so he must be good at numbers. The Permanent Secretary has said that altogether 91 hectares of land, 37 in Wong Valley, south and north of the park, Futayao, 9 hectares among them, and they will be available for farming. But we have been told that there are already people farming there. Or we are talking about fish ponds or structures built on the land. Some have been earmarked for or been used for car parks or recycling the operations. So I want to get some information from the government. That is for the 91 hectares that can be used for farming. How much of the land is being used for farming already? And how many hectares are now being used for the building structures or fish ponds? Or how many of them are actually so-called brown sites? So that we can know, we would like to get the information so that we can know whether this is a feasible program.
And speakers have said that they have been conducting agriculture in this manner for generations. They can't just move away and resume farming. The government should give us a concrete plan for those affected farmers. Now, right now, under the restoration of farming arrangement by the AFCD, already 200 people are in the queue. More than that, are you able to guarantee that they can resume farming? Deputy Secretary, now we are in the planning stage. The 91 hectares are what we have planned for natural conservation and agricultural conservation. Now, Dr. Cheung is talking about the coming stage where affected farmers and residents will be compensated and resettled. I do not have the relevant information on hand on what portion of the 91 hectares is being farmed at present. I can go back to obtain more information. When we actually come to the resettling arrangement, we will follow the existing mode of cooperation with the AFCD to find suitable arable land for these farmers for that purpose. Can you supply us with the figures later? He said that he has no information which of the land is used for farms, for fish ponds, or other purposes. So it's merely talk. I do not have the information on hand. I do not have the specific figures. Can you give us the figures after the meeting? I'll go back and look at the information we have. Next, Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman, and the residents for staying so late. Now, this has almost become a grievance airing meeting for Tám May residents. Now, you have come to LegCo before. Can you tell us briefly how long ago did you come to LegCo on this, and what has the government done for you? What are the urgent matters that you would like us to help you with? Can somebody speak up? Well, by all means, speak out. Apart from the fish, rearing, the water issue, anything else? Mr. Lau Xiu Chung? In July or August, we went to the complaints division of LegCo and we met Mr. Wong and Jasper Zhang, Yip Chi Ming, and I believe Jeffrey Lam. Now, we complained that we've been complaining to MTRCL and they wouldn't admit their responsibility. Now, many LegCos and district council members went to our village to see the actual situation. Now, the deputy secretary is merely talking without substance, but we can show them our real problems, our walls cracking, ground subsiding, the wells drying up. Now, some houses were broken down. The MTRCL came to build new ones, but they didn't admit the responsibility. Now, the insects, centipedes, and so on came out of the earth due to the underground works, and our residents were bitten. Now, we used to have a peaceful farming lifestyle. We are merely asking for a return to the original situation with regard to our water supply, etc. That is why we have come here under such hardship. Now, we had enjoyed a certain reputation for fish farming. We kept almost 1 million comlay fish. Now, thank you. Now, I believe that's under the Transport and Housing Bureau, so would the Deputy Secretary convey this to Mr. Anthony Cheung, and the Secretariat will do this too. I think LegCo will have to help these residents. After the meeting, we should discuss on what's the most effective way to pressurize the MTRCL and the THB to act. Otherwise, nobody would be heeded in the future with regard to their problems. Deputy Secretary, please follow up on this. Next, Mr. Phan Kok Wai. Now, last Saturday and today, we met over 200 deputations and individuals. Many villagers went to the rural committees and they submitted written submissions to the government saying that the rural committees do not adequately represent them. Now, there are not many members here today during or last time during the meeting, so the deputations complained that Mr. Paul Chen is not here, and so they requested that there should be a new public hearing, and Mr. Leung Kwok Hong said that there should be there should be assurance that the government officials should provide written record. Now, Mr. Wong-fat also is not here today. They should provide a response. The government should give us a detailed record so that the government cannot evade the responsibility. Over 80% of the public tell us that they are against the NENT development. I would like Mr. Chen to answer. Also, for the phase 3 of the public engagement exercise, on many occasions, the residents said that the remaining 10 million square feet of agricultural land in Hong Kong will be destroyed in this process. Now, in early October, after LegCo resumed meetings, members repeatedly asked the government to adjust our agricultural policy so that local farming and organic farming can be maintained. The government says that there is a scheme for restoration of farming, and deputations have told us to say that there are a lot of people queuing in the queue. Now, the government says that in the first half of 2013, you would come up with a consolidated plan after hearing people's views. Now, will you adjust your agricultural policy in response to the villagers? Deputy Secretary. Now, thank you, Chairman. Maybe I will answer the second question on agricultural policy. Now, actually, agricultural policy is not under the Development Bureau, but under the Food and Health Bureau. But we will cooperate. We will closely with them for New Territories Northeast on the land for agriculture and conservation. So those farmers who are affected by the NENT development, we will maintain close contact with them in order to come up with a good arrangement. Now, concerning the views, now we have been receiving the various views, and later in the third phase of the public engagement, we will provide a report on public engagement, and all views we received will be included in that report. Now, for the development panel, if the Secretariat has any written records in this regard, they will also be included in our summary. Now, it's been said that there are over 260 deputations which came here to offer their views. So the Secretariat will collect the views and pass them on to you, and you will come up with a collation. Now, if the Secretariat passes on to us the views expressed during this consultation, of course we will receive them. Now, it's not just a summary. Now, the detailed views should be included so that the government can address them. If they are written records, we will certainly take appropriate action. Now, you are relying merely on the Secretariat. Now, we will certainly have our Phase 3 public engagement report. Now, any written expressions will be recorded. Any other questions from members? Leung Kwok Hong? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong? Now, concerning Ngau Tham Mei, there's a scandal today. Now, it's not about the Ngau Tham Mei village. Now, the Kam Lei fish industry. Now, when I went to Japan, or the carp, now many Japanese raise this type of fish because of the good quality of the water from the hills. Now, these people raise this kind of fish since that has been going for a long time. It's not easy to come by good quality water. Now, from what I heard, Mr. Donald Chung's fish came from this area too. Now, Donald Chung knows it's a big problem, and yet he doesn't dare speak up. His fish are going to die. Now, Ngau Tham Mei residents are not being heard. I feel ashamed too. Now, I went there once, and as I said, I didn't have time to go again. So I say this again. Whether it's Anthony Cheung or Paul Chen, both secretaries are responsible. One is trying to promote northeastern new territories. So, well, Anthony Cheung should handle this. Now, if you implement the scheme, well, even if problems were not foreseen, once they occur, you should admit and recognize them, and then you should resolve them, as Mr. C.Y. Leung did. Well, you should get a professional person to have a look. Now, I say again, if you do not resolve this problem, you will have no peace. I call upon you all, on 1st of January, make a big ball, kick away the bad ball, that is Chen Mao Po. I'm serious. Resolve people's problems quickly. You cannot condone this kind of behavior by the ERL. The government controls the MTR-CL, and the MTR-CL controls the ERL. The ERL is taking advantage of these people. Now, the EPD takes legal action, and then it does nothing else. So what's the EPD for? So you should take this seriously. Next, Dr. Kokaki, Chairman. I'd like to ask Ms. Cheung. Now, we know just now the government has put up 2 new sites, and one is at Queen Hill, and there is going to be a private university at Taiwan. Now, these private universities will only increase the debts of those who cannot afford higher education. Now, the government uses all these sites for building residential units. Now, I'd like to ask how much land you have available for residential use. I'm referring to Fan Ling Golf Club. Now, and other similar sites. Now, and I'd like to ask Mr. Hong, now, what are you going to do about the water quality at Ngau Tam Mei? Did you foresee this? Were you knowledgeable? Did you know about this? The CEDD should have done many such studies previously, right? Planning Department, Ms. Chow. Now, this morning, the Permanent Secretary already said that the government is studying the various aspects whereby the government can provide housing land, and I don't want to repeat that, and I like to say that the planning is an ongoing process. We look at the needs of society and the planning situation to review our land planning. Now, can you give us a figure? Is it that 4,000 hectares are being hidden away and you wouldn't release them? We have explained about the contents, the makeup of those 4,000 hectares already. So they wouldn't supply that 4,000 hectares and force people to give up the land. Now, I will ask Mr. Hong to supplement, but I like to say that our officials today are only responsible for matters related to NENT. Now, concerning the ELL or other issues, our colleagues may not be able to supply you with an answer immediately, but whether it's the deputations or the members, if you have asked us to convey certain views, we will certainly do so to the relevant departments. Now, on land, as Ms. Cheung said, we adopt a multi-pronged approach to increase land supply in Hong Kong, especially given the tight supply of homes. Wherever land is available, we will consider it actively. Now, it previously has been discussed on many occasions whether the government has a lot of vacant land. Now, in October, on the 17th of October, in replying to LegCo members' queries and also on the Development Bureau website, we supplied the information to the public, and the so-called vacant land refers to not land that is not yet leased out and which has been allocated for various purposes. Some of the land is not suitable for development. Some of the land is rather isolated. Some are plots next to already developed buildings. Some plots have not been assigned their use, but they are near existing flyovers and they may not be suitable for development. So I stress that we will continue to adopt a multi-pronged approach to increase land supply. New development areas are one way, and we will look at the green belts and industrial land. Now, 60 hectares of industrial land will be transformed in used into land for other purposes. It's not that we are putting away some vacant land. Whenever land can be put to use, we will do so. Now, Mr. Hong, now the ERL is not under the CEDD, so you are not able to supply any views. Now, previously you did some feasibilities for the government. Now, before the MTRCL was involved, were you that ignorant about the problem?
As far as I know, I was not involved with the feasibility report on the express rail project. I don't have such information, and I don't think it was the work was done by the CED. I think you better go back and check and give us a reply later on. Are there any other members who would like to ask questions? Would that gentleman please keep quiet? Mr. Leung Kok Hong, Chairman. While he is yelling, why don't I ask the question on his behalf? Well, you allow them to carry on blasting at the site. Are you aware of that? I mean, you being the CDD. The CDD, in fact, is one of the I think we were one of the parties arranging for the blasting. We're only responsible for granting the license and allotting the explosives. But I think the CDD may not know or be connected with the alignment of the express rail link. I think you better go back and check first. Any other questions? If not, we will end our discussion on this item. I'd like to thank all the deputations for coming here to give us their views. I also like to thank the officials for their attendance. Do members have anything to bring up? If not, if there's no AOB, I declare the meeting is now